Work for the Rothschild family. I'm about to tell you their horrifying secrets. I thought that getting hired at their private museum was a miracle, a golden opportunity to get rich. I just never could have guessed that it would ruin my life forever. The museum opened once during the week, exactly at 6 o'clock in the evening. No earlier, no later. As I waited by the gates for my first day, I saw hundreds of private jets landing at the nearby airstrip. You always hear rumors about a group of wealthy, evil elites that control the world, but I just didn't believe any of it until now. I got ready, then came tapping down the marble staircase with a spring in my step. Not from excitement, rather, a jumpiness that came from instilled fear. I could only pray that they waited until midnight before asking to see our paranormal relic displays. I could only pray they didn't set the creature loose. The foyer was huge. Towering golden pillars wedged between ivory-flavored marble flooring and a mosaic glass ceiling that let starlight beam through. The wealthy visitors soon marched into the museum. I announced, "The tour will start immediately. There's a coat rack to your left if you need to leave any belongings. I do not recommend venturing off. I must press you all to follow me for the tour. However, it's completely optional." It was as if I read off a script. The route started off like any other. I led the rich brats through the left side of the museum. We walked past the history and war rooms, past the living wall, past the Mariana Trench exhibit. We housed creatures from the bottom of the ocean in there that the public hadn't seen before inside immense pressurized titanium tanks. I liked that exhibit the most, but it wasn't time. Hallways were always hauntingly quiet on opening day. The museum's property outside stretched for miles too, so no cars or people provided any consolation for my lonely mind on long nights such as these. It was just me, the rich savages, and the exhibitions. Walking into a hallway intersection leading left to the paranormal display, and to the right the insect room, we had stopped. "Please don't see it, please don't see it," I thought. "This way, please. Why are you all stopping here?" I asked. I knew why. They saw the glass cabinet that towered by the door to the paranormal exhibition hallway, and curiosity beckoned them. It was covered by a dust blanket, only I knew what was underneath, and I knew it was best untouched. "Can we take a look at this?" a voice said quietly from behind, and shattered me like a toppled vase. My smile had to be kept up. I couldn't crack at the start of the tour. That would be tragic. "We will return here after midnight, once we've explored the rest of the museum," one of the men sternly interrupted. "We paid good money for this," he shouted. "At least give us a look." I pulled hard enough at my hair. I'm surprised it didn't come out of my scalp. "Please don't make me show you. I don't want to wake her." "Yeah, give us a look." More bullies chimed in. I was no rookie to the psychological wedgie, but it was in my contract to not put up a fight. Swallowing hard, the words escaped slowly and unwillingly. "Yes, sure." My hand reached for the fabric reluctantly, like it was a hot stove. I pulled the graphite sheet away from the case and flipped the light switch. The fluorescent lights popped and ticked as they flickered within the glass oblong that towered above us. The woman inside was ghoulishly tall, at least 7 feet tall. If she were any bigger, her head would have had to tilt to the side. Sometimes it did. Her black hair flowed onto her pale, shiny shoulders like an ashen willow, her face plasticky and silky smooth. Beneath the glass cube read, "Mariette, 1973 to 2004. The fat man's plump face stared upward, utterly transfixed with the thin, soaring woman. "How?" He cleared his throat. "How did she die?" I thought for a while, my face contemplating and changing in the dim lighting. They clicked and blinked once more. "It pains me to say this, but she was once the tour guide for this museum." My hand met the cold glass. "Sadly, after a few years, she had a mental breakdown and passed away." There were a couple gasps from the rich folk. "Passed away?" A woman's voice from the crowd. My jaw tightened. "She injected herself to death with plasticizing agents. In fact, that is one of the loopholes as to why we can keep her body here on display. Her body is more plastic than flesh and bone." The lights went out. "They'll be back any second," I soothed reassuringly. "That story is absurd." A man boomed. "Unfortunate, sure, but woefully true," I rebutted. "She wanted to give herself to the museum just as the museum had given itself to her." The lights inside the case came back on. My heart sank into my stomach. Clicking noises had not been coming from the lamps after all. Creaking had come from her plastic joints, twisting and contorting, old plastic grinding against itself like a cursed figurine. Now visible, her head had been creaked to one side. She stared unblinkingly at me with glass eyes. Dampening the sheet with my sweaty palm, I narrowly managed to quickly toss the fabric, covering the glass before anyone noticed that she had readjusted her head when it had been dark. "Can we touch her? I want to feel her rubbery, plasticky skin. It sends chills up my spine," a woman asked. I couldn't say no, as per my contract. Hell, these wealthy scumbags could kill me for fun and get away with it if they didn't get what they wanted, and nobody would hear me scream. I had to think quickly. "We shall be moving on." I extended an open hand to the hallway. "This way, please." Things were going smoothly for a few hours. I let them hold and handle the child-sized beetles we had imported from Madagascar. They were beautiful and fluorescent like sunlight through crystal. I got so caught up in my presentations, I had almost forgotten about Mariette's snapping plastic head. Mr. Jones, the rich guy dressed for a convenience store, clicked his tongue as he spoke. "Hey, guide." He threw one thumb behind his shoulder, pointing backward. "We're gonna go back this way to have a look at something else." I nodded reluctantly. Shoddy sneakers tapped away at the marble floors as both he and a woman disappeared down the hall. For a short time, things truly were going great. I even let one woman into the space where we held the glass butterflies. They were gorgeous insects, almost invisible to the human eye. Then out of nowhere came a loud crashing of broken glass. Curiosity had killed the cat. "Please excuse me," I muttered, and sprinted into the dim alley of the museum towards the paranormal wing. Moments after I had started running, I realized I left the doors open to the butterflies. Behind me, the sounds of shouting and pitter-pattering as the tourists sprinted the opposite direction. They were running from the floating creatures, running for their lives, running from deadly venom. It was too late. I had to keep going. My heart sank. I already guessed what I was about to find ahead. The evening was no longer going swimmingly. Around the bend, I found one woman crouched against the wall by a window. She was a ball of tears, clasping her head with two hands. "What the hell happened?" I yelled. Her throat was glaringly tight. Her words struggled to escape her. "I didn't do anything, I looked up. Glass lined the ground and edges of the walls like rain had come and left the devil's hail. A few steps away, the graphite dust blanket half covered a gaping sharp hole in the cabinet. Lights flickered from its mouth, mocking me. Glaring at my watch, my stomach knotted. It wasn't midnight yet. It wasn't midnight, and somebody broke Mariette's display, and she was gone. "Come with me," I said, holding out one hand. We got up and we ran until we caught our breath outside the ocean exhibition and the living wall. "What is this thing? It looks alive," she said, staring at the peach wall. I slapped her hand away. "You mustn't touch that!" I yelled. She gasped, and I realized my mistake. My contract was broken, and my head shall be on a spike. "Don't you dare touch me!" She spat back at me, large angry veins sticking out of her neck. I raised my hand to calm her. "I apologize, ma'am. This strange thing is made of living cells. The very thing you're trying to poke at could eat you." Without knowing, I was back on tour guide script, despite the trauma. We stood there a while, both unable to think nor speak. I stared at the wall unblinkingly, like watching a hot fire, its flesh molding, changing. Peach goo flowed in waves across its surface, inviting me to look closer. Underneath, on a golden placard, "The Living Wall." I shook out of it. Richard Jones had made it back to us. His green t-shirt was torn at the neck, his eyes sunken and traumatized. "The door is locked, guide. We need your key." I nodded. Right away. I started jogging towards the direction of the foyer. He wasn't following. Richard Jones was still standing next to the woman who had been crying in a ball minutes prior. He didn't speak, only glared back at me in the dim starlight that flowed through the window. When he placed his hand on the woman's back and smiled, I knew it was too late. He shoved her with force. The woman shrieked and went tumbling headfirst into the gooey peach wall. Her bones snapped and buckled as blobby fingers wrapped themselves around her spine, her neck. It flowed into her mouth with ease, slowing only to pull at her teeth like it was eating meat off a rough bone. She screamed and screamed until she gurgled vile slime. The wall ate her whole, fleshy goo displaying her features and flesh wide on its waving surface. Bits of arm and mouth suspended upon a hungry blanket. Richard laughed. He laughed and laughed and laughed. For him, money did buy happiness. Horrifying, horrifying happiness. I felt sick. I was going to throw up. The wall's voice was deep and hard to make out at first. A woman's voice, deep in its slimy crevices. I turned to run, but I had seen he had disappeared, and I was safe. He had got the kicks he was looking for and made off with them. It was hard to block out the wall's voice before it all stopped. I lay crouched beneath the window, blocking my ears and rocking in a ball. My heart was out of my chest, my stomach a knot. I didn't want to be a tour guide any longer. Sprinting and sprinting, I never looked back. I climbed the stairs swift enough that my thighs felt like they were going to give out. I sprinted out of the museum and ran to the nearest road and called a taxi. I was never coming back here.